The first piece of stage combat that I ever did was in a show called Dean, about James Dean, which is a show in the West End. It was my first West End show of 1977 or 76, something like that. And one of the things that we had to do was do this knife fight. And we didn't have anybody actually to choreograph this particular fight, except the choreographer. There was a choreographer who was literally the dancing choreographer. And he was trying to choreograph this fight, and it became evident that he'd never choreographed a knife fight before. And myself and the lead actor, Glenn, who was playing James Dean, were working this out, and this choreographer was going, no, this is how you do it. And as he was doing it with me, I just flicked the knife out of his hand. And he went, oh, you know more about this than I do. You better do this. So I ended up choreographing this knife fight together. These are my second set of swords. They're actually customs and excise sabres, or naval sabres, we believe. They're at least about 120 years old, and they're real steel blades, and Terry went down and balanced them up and put the big pommels on that you can see, and that sort of Middle Eastern cross piece there and blade catcher, which made them very useful. But the blades are cutlasses. The backpack was made by Mickey Povey, our props guy, literally on the set. He hand sewed the whole thing himself and chopped it and measured it to my back and cut it out of the wood and made the whole thing fit. And as you can see, they've done sterling service. This is what happens when the swordmaster isn't involved with designing the swords for the artist. You end up with a piece of a lump like this, which was the swords from the Owen of Clun episode, Hearn's Son. Originally these were made out of steel and bronze and weighed about 10 pounds a piece. This one is completely made of aluminium, and even so it's still unbelievably unwieldy, although it does ring rather nicely. I did some fencing when I was at stage school, and I did some little bit of fencing basically as a hobby, and I was training with a guy called Michael J, who was is the only, I think something like the 8th grade Iaido expert in the world, which is the Japanese sword form. And there is a technique in Japanese sword using two small swords called wakazashis. But I really didn't know a great deal about it until the day that I stepped onto the set of Robin of Sherwood, and I'd seen in the script there was to be a two-handed sword fight, and I was actually playing with two knives at home. These, in fact, these very knives, which are Gurkha kukris, and we're playing with these and sort of swinging them around just to see what could happen, and actually carved a piece of one of the back of the knives off. Raziel's fighting style came out of a practicality with the stunt guys. What we discovered was that because the two-handed sword fighting style itself was virtually unbeatable, if somebody was attacking me with one sword, I could tag them really easily. So we invented this style where I would do a lot of attacking and waving of swords, and people kind of just tried to fend me off. That was one of the stunt guys' most entertaining moments, working out how they were going to deal with this. And this whole thing with the backpack was invented so I could carry the swords in a way that I could also carry the bow and the arrows. I put the arrows around my waist and hung them from my belt as well, which I could get to faster than having them on the back, but I needed to get rid of the swords somehow out of the way. So we strapped them to my back like this. The problem was I kept smacking myself on the back of the head. Whenever I jumped off anything or got on a horse or anything, the pummels would smack me on the back of the head. The first pack that we actually had, I couldn't actually draw out without assistance from the props people, so this is why we made these, so I could actually draw them on camera, in one movement. But the whole thing was designed to be able to swing them around the way that looked interesting, and then sometimes even throw them. Which, of course, these little swords, because they're very well balanced, you can throw them. In one episode I did throw them. So basically it was anything to keep the frame, and normally they'd be framed high, so what you saw mainly was the sword passing through the movement. So this was the basic Raziel attack, which kept the sword guy who had one sword busy and kept both of my hands flailing about, so it looked like the attack was purposeful, and yet a single sword could defend himself from it. And it was easy for some guy to get it. This is what we call a box or a boxed four, so that again the opposition's sword, the opponent's sword, is moving around and looks like it's very busy, but actually it's quite simple stuff.
These would be two-handed parries to get people out of the fight really quickly, because if you just wanted a quick fight, this is what you would do.
The concept of counterpunching was that however somebody attacked you, I could always parry away with one sword and counterattack with the other. So we developed the style of cross-blocking and kicking, or cross-blocking and slicing across the opponent, so that, you know, I always enjoyed those. It worked best from this angle. We used that in, again, Hearn's Son, we used that several times in several fights. So whichever way I parried, if I did a cross-block there, I could kick on that side.
Cross-blocks.
That's the scissors cut that we use quite a lot, and the idea was to catch the opponent's sword and bind it away, and then basically cut their head off in a scissor. That's the kidney scissor cut. Terry Walsh developed what has survived to this day and is known as Robin Hood 1, 2 and 3. And most of the stunt guys knew this. It was a way of being able to fill in the background of any sword fight quickly without too much rehearsal. This is Robin Hood 2.
And a gimbal.
And you could finish it off with a bind or some kind of a gimbal. Okay, Robin Hood 3. Basically used for getting us to reverse in the camera. If we were shooting from a different angle, and you needed to get people to reverse in the shot, very simple movement, but it meant that we could change places so that we could swap sides for the reverses. So, very simple.
Bang. Big slash. Through. So you start this side. There you go. Bang. I got the opposite down.
And again, trying to keep the sword either at cheek or hip level, or certainly not below the knee, otherwise it looks like you don't need the shot. Woof.
So we got that, we got the bow, we got the swords, and then we've got this.